Here in a second. Okay, we're live. Good. Hello, everybody. My name is Jeff Taylor from Helatch and the Social Media Breakfast Montreal. We're doing a quick hangout with Craig Silverman, who's kindly of Spundge, who's kindly agreed to speak at our upcoming event on August 14th at La Bistrut down in Griffintown, 8 till 10 a.m. Tickets are, ticket links, etc., are going to be an accompaniment to this video via Eventbrite, and then, of course, on our social media channels. Hi, Craig. Thanks for joining us.
Hey, it's nice to get a chance to chat, and it's nice that we both chose to wear green shirts, completely unplanned.
Absolutely. Some a bit more bold than others.
It's true. You're more bold than me. I'll give you that. Yes.
I'm in my basement, so maybe that has something to do with it. I haven't had to face the world yet today. The topic we're going to be covering, and that you've so rightly labeled a no bullshit discussion for creating good for good content and how to create it. Is that? I'm seeing a cut-off version of it here.
Yeah, absolutely. A no bullshit discussion about good content and how to create it. Exactly.
Good. And I know that based on reading your bio and such, your background is first and foremost in journalism. If you wouldn't mind enlightening the folks that are going to watch this leading up to the event, maybe a minute or so, a quick background wrap-up of yourself, Craig?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, sometimes I get described with this kind of new term, which is an entrepreneurial journalist, which means basically, as you said, I mean, my background is in journalism. I did a journalism degree at Concordia. I've been a columnist for the Globe and Mail, for the Toronto Star, contributed to the New York Times, was a regular contributor to Report on Business magazine and lots of other publications in Canada and the U.S. But I also, at the same time of sort of doing that, I guess, more traditional journalism work, I've often been involved in startups related to digital media and news. So the first one was a blog that I launched in 2004 called Regret the Error, that tracks media errors, corrections, talk about accuracy and verification. And so that blog, I still run it. It was actually acquired by the Poynter Institute for Media Studies in the US, so I'm adjunct faculty there. And then a few years ago, I helped start OpenFile, which produced local news in 7 Canadian cities. So that was a news startup, an online news startup in Canada. And now I'm part of the team at Spundge, where we have a platform that enables teams and professionals to create content and publish it and monetize it in different ways. And so I've been sort of mixing the world of journalism and startups for a little while.
Right on, and you're a Montrealer.
I am. I mean, I'm natively a Haligonian. I'm originally from Nova Scotia.
Yeah, we like Easterners.
There you go. Well, you know, we're all towards the east of the country, and came here actually for school, for my journalism degree at Concordia, and have stuck around, and I'm lucky to still be here. Yeah.
Super. And quickly regarding Spundge, we had a brief chat leading up to the on-air version of this little intro. We were talking about, obviously, the importance of content, and one thing I'd thrown at you, and that Spundge seems to directly address is the need now with Google's latest, sort of rounds of updates where, links and link building in the traditional sense of SEO aren't as effective and will probably be less so moving forward. So I think it's a timely discussion we're having, and if you could maybe address some of those latest changes and the impact of folks who make a living at being number 1, 2, 3 on Google, and maybe how Spundge is going to help address that for folks that are either pressed for time, ideas, and maybe give us a quick indication of what we can expect at the talk that might help some folks address those issues.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, so the first part obviously is the changes that are taking place that you highlight. So Google has a very strong position in search, and so when they change their algorithms and they punish certain kinds of sites and certain kinds of activities, it has a very broad impact. And we're seeing that right now for kind of a lot of traditional SEO tactics just aren't as effective as they used to be. And so people are kind of wondering, well, how do I stand out online? And sometimes that's, how do I end up as on that first page of search results, but also, how do I get people to follow me on Twitter? How do I get that engagement to translate into sales and other kinds of, measurable activity? And, for me, taking that journalistic approach to it, I think it sort of started a lot a few years ago when there were companies like Demand Media and others that were labeled content farms. And basically what they did in a nutshell was they looked at what people were searching for on Google and other search engines, and then they created pages of content and in some cases video to answer those questions. So they would produce this really robotic copy and these really robotic videos and pages.
Would eHow
Yeah.
be something along? Okay.
Exactly.
That's one I've often seen, so I just wanted to.
That's exactly it. That's one of their properties, and so it was really robotic writing. It was writing for the search engine robots rather than writing for people. And at a certain point, there was a lot of discussion in journalism about how little those people were paid to do this. But Google made a decision that it was actually going to sort of redo its algorithm in certain ways, adjust it. And it ended up punishing a lot of these sites, whether it was eHow or some of the other ones that were out there. And so I think that started a shift for a lot of organizations and companies, realizing that creating pages that were really keyword focused, that had kind of linking structures that were meant to really appeal to the bots that were crawling out there, that was going to get less and less effective. And one of the other pieces, obviously, is that it was really out of their hands. So if all they were doing was thinking about what Google wanted and Google decided to change it, then they're making bets on something they don't control. And so what's happening is that I think people in companies, in marketing teams, and just the average professional who, they're trying to figure out, how do I stand out? And how do I actually find things to talk about that are related to what I do, that are interesting, and that get me the results of, engagement, whether it's traffic or retweets or however you want to measure it. And so I think this is where we're moving towards a time where you see a lot of brands, from really big ones like Pepsi to small businesses, really trying to figure out, how do I actually create content that's interesting and that's really a value add on my services, as opposed to just being enough to get a little bit of search traffic. And so this is where there's a shift taking place towards value and useful content, as opposed to just content that gets the bots. And I mean, where we fit in on this a bit with Spundge is our platform is really built to help any team or professional figure out the stuff they should be talking about. So, kind of in a broad sense, how to be interesting, but also how to translate your expertise and what you do in your daily work into content that will get results for you. And so we've built it to help people do that by tracking the topics that are relevant for their business and enabling them to quickly turn that into content that can be blog posts or email newsletters or other things that can move the needle for them. So, I mean, for me, it's really a great time because there's more investment being made in quality content now. There's more thought being given to how do we turn this into a story or a narrative, which is incredibly powerful. I mean, stories have been told since humans existed. They're a fundamental way that we interact with each other and that we see and relate to the world. So bringing more narrative, bringing more story, and trying to be a little more useful in a way where you're actually, thinking about what your customers and your audience needs, as opposed to thinking of what the search engine needs. I mean, that's a great shift. Now, it's complicated for a lot of people, and it's been difficult for a lot of people, but ultimately, it's going to, help cut through the noise for the folks to figure out how to do it well.
I totally agree. I mean, I think we're early in the sense that it's good that we're talking about it, and I think that folks attending the event, their eyes are gonna be opened a little bit in terms of maybe how far behind some of their organizations are. I know that,
right.
In some cases, if you're not an early adopter, you may as well not adopt it at all. But if you want to be anything on the web moving forward, I think that it's, like you said, you almost need a story to tell as opposed to just worrying about those traditional tactics that, the keywords, the anchor text. I mean, it seems that those efforts are being diluted by Google, and perhaps, certainly from a journalist standpoint, it's a good thing. And me as a consumer of content, I enjoy reading blogs and articles that have a unique approach versus
Yeah.
something that I've read on another sort of a blog from the same niche that's generally just spun and saying the same thing. So all those
Yeah.
article spinners and all of those crazy softwares they use for building links and creating social profiles. I mean, they'll probably, I think, be a market for it in some other countries where in other languages where Google hasn't
Right.
targeted as much of their efforts, because I think we're talking about a machine-based or sort of a machine learning algorithm that they focus primarily on the English language, and rightly so. It's the most consumed, I would imagine, worldwide. But it's going to be interesting to see what they do. And I mean, yes, they are the leader, but we can't certainly forget about some of the other search engines and
Yeah.
demographics out there, depending on where you do business, I guess.
Hmm.
It is another way to look at things. Last question before we leave some juiciness for the actual event.
Right.
Uh, we've been emailing back and forth a little bit, and something you mentioned in a few of those emails was your like or dislike for the buzzword content marketing. Do
Right.
I mean, as a journalist, can you say that good content or should or needs to be marketed? And do we have Google to thank for the whole advent and that uprising of the buzzword content marketing?
Yeah, I think it's actually kind of funny because the reason why content marketing has taken hold as the term to sort of describe this whole discipline is because the folks at the Content Marketing Institute made a conscious decision to, through blogging, through white papers, through keywords, and through a very unified content marketing strategy, they marketed the phrase content marketing. So, it's kind of a success case in and of itself. I mean, for me, I think one of the reasons why I sometimes feel conflicted about it is that at the core of it, content marketing is really publishing. And in truth, a lot of companies and brands, it's not just been journalism organizations that have been publishing. Companies and brands have been publishing for a long time. And a really obvious example of that would be, the Michelin guides. So these are, the ratings of the best restaurants in the world. This is, a sponsored content project that has been going on for decades and decades and decades, and is highly respected, highly valued, and that's content marketing. And there you can get examples from consumer products going back, at least in the early 20th century. So I think we are giving a new name to what has been something that's been proven for a long time. And what's really making it take off is kind of the digital aspect of it, because the disruption that's happened in publishing has made it very easy for companies to enter into publishing. It's a very low barrier to entry now to launch your own magazine, to invest in content. And that's in a lot of cases, it's actually cheaper than doing traditional display ads, buying ads in magazines. Well, it's easier to actually start your own magazine now than to pay for a full ad in a very large newspaper or consumer magazine. So it's the classic example of new media being packaged in the old way, to loosely take some of the Marshall McLuhan things. And so, yeah, I do feel a bit conflicted about the term content marketing. It's taken hold, though. It's what people talk about. And if it seems intimidating to people, I just encourage them to think about, it's really just a matter of trying to take your expertise and the knowledge you've built up in doing your work and trying to translate that into content that will serve the people that you work with and that you want to work with. And when you put it in simple terms like that, and when you talk about, and for me, one of the things that I'm going to speak about at the breakfast is a lot of people don't consider themselves to be a content creator. And like over 90% of the people out there are already doing a lot of the things they need to do in order to become a good content creator. And I'm going to show them that they are doing that and take them through the steps of how they go from where they are now of the things they do to getting to that point of actually being able to publish. And so that's my useful bit of content that I'm going to be sharing with people, is making them realize that it's not as intimidating to create content as they might think, that they're probably doing a lot of the things that they already need to do in order to create good content, and then I'm going to give them the next few steps they need to get to that next level. And that's what they're going to walk away with. I think hopefully people feel empowered that number one, this is a great way to do their marketing and a great way to tell their story and engage with people, and number two, it's not as hard and as intimidating as they may think it is.
That's good news, because we certainly like to take away from the folks that present, and I'm personally looking forward to it, like I do each breakfast. But this one is hitting home, because I think anyone that markets digitally and who earns the majority of their business through in the traditional sense, being up there on Google or ranking for X or Y keyword,
right.
it's going to be a kick in the pants, I think, for uncovering what's going to certainly be a necessary strategy moving forward. So I'd like to thank you for taking the time. Breakfast, folks, between 8 and 10 on August 14th. Tickets on Eventbrite are available now. And Craig, once again, thanks for your time.
Thank you. Looking forward to seeing everybody.
All right. Take care.